Ah, hello. My name is David. It's 4:20. It's time to get high. Getting high is a very Jewish thing. In fact, the word cannabis comes from the Torah, which one of the spices they used, one of the ingredients they used to make the 11 spices that they used in the temple was called cannabussing. It wasn't actually one of the 11, but it was used in the process. And that's where cannabis comes from. Cannabussing means a righteous plant. And so it is. And there's more about marijuana and in the Jewish tradition, that Hebrew, every letter in Hebrew can be translated into a number, as a number attached to it. And the number attached to the word ashan, smoke, is 420. And ashan, olam shana nefesh, is an acrostic for the spelling of ashan. Olam shan. Ayin Shin Nun is an acrostic for Olam Shana Nefesh, the world, time, and soul. And it's all incorporated in the idea of 420. And 420 also has a lot to do with where the Torah was received on Har Sinai, which blossomed and smoked. So, and just the whole idea of getting high means to be able to elevate yourself above the terrestrial plane, even a little bit, you'd say even a tefach, just a hand's breadth, above the earth, and everything looks differently. So I decided, since I usually try to be home by 4:20 in order to enjoy smoke with other people who smoke at 4:20, it's become kind of a worldwide thing. So it seemed a good time to do a broadcast about Jewish mysticism, all the aspects of Jewish mysticism. I am a Jewish mystic. I have been studying the ancient language of Hebrew and Aramaic for 50 years and studying in the books and searching for the truth. And what is the truth? So the truth can be found in structure. And the structure that's implicit in the Torah, throughout the Torah, is what we call the tree of life. And the tree of life, thank you for your message. And the tree of life is based in 10. We call the Eser Sefirot the 10 luminaries. And the word Eser, the 10, the letters can be turned around to make the word Shar, meaning gate. And this is the gateway into all things. And this is based upon the name of God, Yud He Vav He. 4 letters, 2 male letters, 2 female letters. And from these 4 letters comes is the seed for the tree of life. The Yud, which I don't have one right here in front of me, but it's just a point, and it's sort of a round little point. It has a little horn at the top and a horn at the bottom, and that's the head. Because every person is born and is created in the form of the tree of life, and the tree of life has these 10 components made in 3 triangles, And the Yud and the Hey, the first two letters of the God's name, Yud Hey Vav Hey, correspond to the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain. And then the Vav, that's the body, that's like the spine. And then the last, the final Hey is speech. And so that's what we find, that the human body is made with two hemispheres of the brain, and then the six parts of the body, two triangles, the two arms, the torso, the two legs, and the sex. And let's see, more than that. Yes. And the last one, because that's three triangles is 9, and 10th is speech. And speech is woman, where the others are male and female, but speech is absolutely woman. And the lips are the lips of woman. And this is the beginning of the process, is the end of the process. And this is pictured in the earth, in the 7 continents, in the 3 oceans, and also in the solar system, in the sun and the 9 planets. Now, they say that there's 8 planets, but there's really 9 planets. And for many years, we counted 9 planets until we could see further and see that there is more stuff out there in the Kuiper Belt. You know, Pluto is there in the Kuiper Belt, and there's other stuff in the Kuiper Belt. And the Kuiper Belt is quite large. It surrounds our solar system, or surrounds, I'm not sure if it surrounds something, but it's way out there. You would be surprised to know that the solar system is described in the Zohar. The Zohar is a book that was written 2,000 years ago. And they call Pluto, the furthest planet, by the name Eretz, because when the human being had to leave the Garden of Eden, he ran to Eretz. And Eretz was so far from the sun that it was like in darkness, except he could see these streaks of light, erratic, just coming from everywhere. So where was paradise? So paradise is beyond the Kuiper Belt. And it's interesting that scientists recognize, astronomers recognize, that there is something beyond the Kuiper Belt that's kind of begging to be found, because they can measure that it's applying gravitational force upon the outer planets, particularly Pluto, but they can't find it. And the reason they can't find it, because the side of paradise that's facing us is complete darkness, and nothing can come back from it. It's like a dark hole, you know. Nothing reflects out of it, so it looks dark. But on the other side is paradise. And that's where the Adam, who was created on the earth, was taken to be tested. And when he failed the test, he was thrown out. And it says that there were these flicker of swords that would prevent him from coming back. And that's what he saw. We know it as the Kuiper Belt, full of this erratic, frozen not mass. I mean, it's like, it's all these different things, just randomly running into one another. And then, because the Adam was afraid, so God put him on Adamah. And from Adamah, the sun looks like a star. So we recognize these descriptions from satellites that we've sent out there, and that Neptune and Pluto are so far away that the sun looks like a star. Also, the final aspect of creation, the final aspect of woman is that she turns where a man points. As we see, men are very line oriented, and women are very curve oriented. So and so it's said that only woman turns. She turns to receive, and then she returns, and then she turns the other way to give birth. And similarly, Pluto, for 20 years out of its 248-year orbit around the sun, turns into Neptune's orbit for 20 years. The last time this happened was from 1980 to 1999. And it won't happen again for another 220 years, which will be the end of the Hebrew calendar, which is a 6,000-year calendar. And it's interesting to note that when Trump was elected, that the year was 5,777. Yes. And when he was inaugurated, he was 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days. And on the day that the World Health Organization proclaimed COVID to be a worldwide pandemic, there were 7,770,000,000 people in the world. And the 777 has to do with ending, like the Jewish week. There's 6 days of work, and then there's the 7th day of rest, and that ends the week. And actually, the way the way the Shabbos ends the week is because there are 4 times we pray, and each prayer has 7 prayers in it. So the first 777 is about ending the previous week, and then the last 7 said just before the end of the day is about starting the next week, because all things are blessed from 7. And in this case, the 777, which has to do with ending, is blessing the whole world by making an end of not just Trump, but this very arrogant kind of male energy that's going to, just rush in and destroy everything and not care and just living in chaos. And in order to keep, male order, because, when there's chaos and fighting, you usually want a man there. You don't want your women fighting. Many women, particularly these days, pretty good fighters. But generally, that's the man's job, to go out and fight and protect the women. So I don't remember why I was saying that. I have something else to smoke. Anyways, so all that is all very interesting. And I'd be happy to accept any of your questions. I'm very good at answering questions. It's a very important time that we live in. And I find I'm pushing myself, trying to do something like this. I just need to be out there and be on the air. And I try most days to do it 420. See what we can do. Can make a little, a little thing of it, because so much is happening, and there's so much to say, and there's so much information that people need. Because if this time were to be designated something, it would probably be designated, the time of deceit and lies, when lies have just taken, just taken over everything, where we don't know what's true or false, to the point where we think there is no truth. So I have come with the Zohar, which is proof that there is the truth. And what is the truth? The truth is in structure. And when you see structure, you see truth, because structure doesn't just happen. Even though the scientists claim that that life just happened out of a big bang, but there's so many things they can't explain, like why everything is similar, why all the atoms are similar, why are, there's just so many things. And to me, the biggest proof of all, that God created this creation, not in one moment, but in a process that took, millions of years, but in a very, very set out profit, set out process. Excuse me. So, and the process, the thing that makes the Zohar so amazing, written 3,000 years ago, that not only can it describe the outer planets of our solar system, which could not even be seen until like 100 years ago. They discovered Pluto, but the Zohar knew it. How the Zohar knew it? Because they knew like all the ancient secrets, and they knew how creation was created. And this is written in the very beginning of the Zohar, which the Zohar, the place of the Zohar, as described in the book Zohar, is the inside of the black hole. And it explains how the black hole came into being and how all creation came out of the black hole. And how was it? It's interesting. Today, I saw I like to look at the news, particularly in science and stuff. And so now they're talking about how creation started with a twisted light, which is interesting because that's exactly how the Zohar describes the beginning of creation. That God had a will, and the will was to be known in a low world. And the beginning of a low world is time and space. I mean, to God, you got to remember, God's not spiritual. God created the physical and the spiritual, the heavens and the earth, and God is neither. And where everything in heaven and earth is dualistic, God is one. And one doesn't mean like in monotheism, the biggest one of all the gods. One means in dualism, one can be everywhere all the time to everybody. And that's God. We have no description of God since God's not physical or spiritual, but God has to talk in our language. And the knowledge from the other side of the black hole is that God created because God had a desire, the desire to be known in low. And that's where we are. We are the lowest place in creation. Everything around us is spiritual, and we are physical. And everything spiritual lives within, and physical, we live on the outside. All of their life lives in things, like water lives in their source. And but the human being, we live on top of our source because we are physical. We are the lowest level. Because we are the lowest level, therefore we have freedom of choice. No one has freedom of choice but the human being, because we're so far away from the light that we can think that there is no truth. And that is that is a choice. But it's really only a choice once that you have the information. And the information is that there is structure throughout the universe, all based in the tree of life. That's not some kind of like dogma or something. I mean, this is a set out structure and a set out way. The Zohar explains, the Zohar is like 1,000,000 words, and it explains in great detail how the universe came into being through this will of God being twisted into the Or Ein Sof. What is the Or Ein Sof? Or Ein Sof means light without end. Light without end is light that doesn't move. I mean, if it's moving, it's got an end. But if it doesn't move, it has no end. It's all perfectly quiescent, together, woven together. And yes, and and that's light. That's Or Ein Sof. And inside that Or Ein Sof, God made the space of the universe by twisting the will of God. That's what it says, in a circular way, engraving the will of God into the Or Ein Sof, enough to make a bubble. And inside that bubble, which is like the original black hole, made a perturbation in the Or Ein Sof and created within that space many black holes. And from the twisting uh, of the movement of God's desire to be known in low, then everything um, uh, started to move in that direction, and it caused a heaviness before there, and there's no substance, but it caused this heaviness. And from the friction of the heaviness is what gave the energy to blow out all the stars, which are really just the engraving of God's name into the Or Ein Sof. And all the shards that came from that are stars, and they went out until God said, enough, that's enough going out. And that became the expanse of the universe. And that's how color came into being, because when God said stop, the universe slowed down to the speed of light. And that caused the perturbations to be translated into wavelengths. And this is responsible for everything that is in creation, and everything is together. It's all held together by God's original desire to be known in low. And how is God known in low? That God is known in low when we know God, and God knows us. But we have to know God. We have to know that God is here all the time for everyone. And when you need something, you're supposed to ask God. And don't expect, a bucket of gold to come down. But God hears every prayer, and God adjusts the world so what the person needs that they can actually find. But one has to travel that road. It's not just going to happen, see, because God wants to be known in low. So here we are in low, trying to live our lives, and we want to do it with the Creator. We don't just want to do it by ourselves. We don't want to think we're spit out by some, big bang and actually dentally turned into life that can think and articulate thoughts. This is absurd. The only thing that's really real is that there is structure in the universe. Like I was going to say, I didn't get to say that if you ever seen a total eclipse of the sun by the moon, it's like seeing the hand of God, because the moon is precisely the size of the orb of the sun. I once asked an astronomer, how extraordinary it was that the moon should precisely cover the sun. And he said it's like someone put it there. And think of it, over the one planet in the universe where there is life, not just an amoeba or two, but there is life everywhere we look on this planet. And the reason that there's life everywhere that we look, as God said, this world is a very special world. It's not like all the worlds around us, all the planets, all the suns. Our world originated as a pebble beneath the seat of God, the throne of God. And God picked it up and wrapped it in layers and placed it right in the right place. I think the moon was here before that, holding place. And then the moon became the moon of the earth. And the earth is full of life because in the kernel of the earth is this pebble from beneath the throne of God. What we call a throne of God. Everything's kind of a metaphor when you talk about God, because God's not physical or spiritual. But when one sits, they become closer to the earth. And God is attentive to the earth and sits upon the throne. Remember, God is not physical or spiritual, meaning that God becomes close to the earth. And whoever prays to God, whoever acknowledges that the Creator is here and is very interested in everybody's life, everyone's life is a book in God's library, and God is reading each book until it closes. Life is over, and then that book is put into the shelf of the libraries of all the other people who have lived. And every book is beloved by God, and particularly when the page is still open and life can become anything. We can change our lives at any moment and change our directions and incorporate the Creator in creation by through our acknowledgement that, we're here far away, man, far away from heaven, and heaven's far away from God. All that was produced by a black hole is just a perturbation in the Or Ein Sof, and God is none of that. God is beyond all of creation. So, with all of that, we should understand is really the basis of Jewish mysticism. To understand that God is here for everyone all the time, no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing. It says that when the thief, when he enters in to thieve, he prays to God, I should be successful. So here he's doing something God said not to do. Don't thieve. Don't take stuff from other people. And he's praying to the same God who said, don't do it. Let me be successful. Because we all have that closeness with God. We know we might get judged in this world, the next world, but our relationship, our personal relationship with God is beyond all of that. And that's why it is so important that people should not kill one another, even hurt one another. But killing is like closing the book that God is reading. And suddenly someone comes, bang, yeah, the book's closed, man. And God is not happy. God doesn't like murder. God doesn't like stealing. God doesn't like people praying to things that aren't God. God doesn't like using God's name in vain. I think goddamn is like a terrible idea. And God wants the human being to live on the earth and to be cognizant of nature and to guard nature, make laws to guard nature, and to guard women and children, men, us all, have certain restraints on sexuality, of who can be touched and who can touch them and the whole trip. And, we need laws about that, laws of coming of age, stuff like that. And it's up to us to make the laws. And then the last law, in a sense, the most important law, is to make courts of law. And these are like the 7 commandments given to the first human beings, that they should not serve anything but God, and not use God's name in vain, and not to steal, not to murder, watch over the environment and the animals, and make confines around sexuality. But in the Torah, which is very strict, there's no sexual action that is wrong between consenting adults. The main thing is when people are not consenting, or if someone is a young person. How young is it before they're fair game, I guess. And these are things society is required to do. And to keep everything together, we need courts of law so people can come and find, quick justice. You don't have to go to the Supreme Court. We can have a situation where we have basic ways that we live with one another. The real tough things can go to the Supreme Court. But all these things can be worked on. We're supposed to work on them so that we can make this a cool planet. The planet was made to live on, to have pleasure, and to know God. All right. Well, this is my first broadcast, and it's been 30 minutes. That's a good amount. And I appreciate the few people who are on it. Please come back, and you try to do it at 4:20. A good time to get high with Jewish mysticism and talk about astronomy and science and religion and all these things that are really lying to us about what reality is. So, anyways, I've kind of taken this on as uh, not an obligation, but a commitment. As much as I can do it, I'll try to do it. So, hope to see you tomorrow. I'll schedule one for tomorrow at 4:20. Tell your friends, and be happy to take your questions next time. Okay, and thank you much for your reaction. Sargini 111. All right, I don't know, but anyways, thanks for coming. Make it kind of put it out there. I don't do much social networking, and I have a website called davidhouse.com. You can see my books over there. All right, see you later. Bye bye.